In Algonquin folklore, there's a creature called the Wendigo. It begins a man, but once that man eats human flesh, usually out of sheer desperation, something inside of him changes. It becomes hollow-eyed, gaunt, consumed by an insatiable hunger that can never, ever be satisfied. For centuries, the Wendigo has been dismissed as legend, folklore. But in Ukraine, in the chaos of modern war, there may have been a man who proved otherwise. A man named Ivan Petrochenko. Ivan Petrochenko was born in Moscow in 1999. As a child, he only wanted a few things. Simple dreams. One of them was to join the army. He imagined himself as a soldier, serving his country with honor, wearing the uniform that he admired so deeply. But life rather works out as we dream. When he was in school, he got into fights, and he wasn't that great of a student, but he was good with his hands. So at the age of 15, he dropped out and began working on cars. This didn't make much money, so, like many people in Russia that fell on hard times, he turned to theft. And by 2022, he had been caught and sentenced to 10 years for stealing a car. While serving his time, in 2024, he was press-ganged into service with a penal battalion and deployed to the outskirts of Bandivka. Also in this battalion was a former prisoner and friend, another man named Ivan. Ivan, a convicted murderer, had been in the same convict training program with Petrachenko, and the fact that they had the same first name made them fast friends. Petrachenko was full of pride. Here he was, serving in the army, fighting for Russia. His dream was, in a twisted way, being fulfilled. They worked well together when they hit the front lines, but, as is well documented, penal battalions are weakly supplied, and after a brutal attack in Bandivka, they found themselves pinned under gunfire, hiding in the trenches. The gunfire wasn't the problem. The problem was food. There, his unit was cut off. No orders, no rations, just starvation. For almost 3 weeks, no rations made it to the lines. Petrachenko and his comrades caught rats, gnawed whatever scraps they could, but desperation set in. When Petrachenko finally boiled and ate one of his own boots, a darker thought took hold. Nearby, mortarman Boris Fortunov lay mortally wounded, slowly dying from infection and shrapnel. That night, with starvation twisting his mind, Petrachenko made a decision. He fell on Boris, killed him quickly, and carved a large section from his inner thigh. He roasted the meat over a small fire and consumed it. 3 days later, a single truck managed to lightly resupply the battalion. But Petrachenko was changed. Bread made him gag. Meat from the supply tent made him vomit. The only thing he could stomach was human. Petrachenko confided in Ivan, telling him of his desperation. Amazingly, although disgusted and appalled, Ivan remained friends with the self-admitted cannibal. Survival, he reasoned, meant sacrifice. In prison, and now on the front lines, survival was never pretty. But when Petrachenko began scavenging corpses at night, Ivan realized something was horribly wrong with his friend. The convoy had barely resupplied the battalion, and though the other men recovered with bread and tinned meat, Petrachenko remained sickened by the rations. now facing starvation despite food being available, and with the corpses too far rotted to consume, Petrachenko made a plan. He would kill the rest of the battalion in their sleep. One by one they fell. Last to fall was Ivan, who was recording a farewell message to his family on a smuggled cell phone. On the video, Petrachenko approaches Ivan, stabs him brutally, and whispers, "Spi, brat, spi." Sleep, brother, sleep. The next time Petrachenko appears, it's on a helmet cam footage recovered from Bakhmut. A group of 17 Russian soldiers had survived a brutal fight, and they were celebrating, drinking vodka, singing folk songs, even belting out the national anthem. For once, the mood was joyful. The men toasted their fallen comrades, slapped each other on the back, and dreamed of soon being rotated home. A portable generator buzzed in the corner, powering a single hanging bulb that swayed as they sang. And then the door creaked open. It was Petrachenko. You can see the men shout cheerfully. They offer him vodka. They give him bread and water. You hear laughter. Petrachenko walks up and says, "Brat, brothers," before he produces a handgun and begins shooting. At first, it's mass confusion. Some men think that it's a drunken accident, but Petrachenko moves with absolute deadly precision. Bursts cut down men before they can react. Screams echo, bottles shatter, and bodies collapse. One soldier bravely charges him with a knife, but Petrachenko empties a fresh magazine into his chest at near point-blank range. The room descends into carnage. When the shooting stops, the feed captures the sound of Petrachenko calmly reloading, and then silence, followed by his low, tuneless humming. The camera tilts and shows him crouching over a body, tearing into the throat of a dead comrade. The wet sound of flesh being devoured. The recording continues on for 9 minutes before the battery finally dies. Almost a month later, Petrachenko is captured on GoPro footage belonging to a foreign volunteer. His call sign was Hillbilly. Real name was David Perez, a Texan. Alongside him was Tony Pizza Sokolov, a volunteer from New York. It was late at night. The two are on watch, laughing, talking about what they'll eat whenever they finally go home. Perez dreams of steak. Sokolov, true to his call sign, is dreaming of pizza. Then there was movement in the snow. A gaunt, staggering figure, covered in blood, his cheek torn open. At first, the two men are horrified, but they see the Russian uniform, and immediately their training in humanity kicks in. They believe he is simply a wounded enemy soldier in need of help. Hillbilly calls out in broken Russian, "Hands up, stand right there." But Petrachenko ignores all orders given. Pizza walks up, says, "Hillbilly, this guy's really hurt. Something's not right. Let's get him in the trench and see about helping him out. Get him off. I'll check him out for weapons." What happens next is beyond what anybody should ever have to witness. As Hillbilly puts a hand on Petrachenko's shoulder, Petrachenko immediately sinks his teeth into Hillbilly's throat, tearing like a rabid dog, ripping into his jugular and causing the man to scream out in abject horror. Pizza turns around, and before he can raise his rifle, Petrachenko throws Hillbilly to the ground and charges at Pizza. Pizza is no slouch. He served 3 tours in Afghanistan before he was medically cleared to return back home and discharged. He fights hard, even managing to break Petrachenko's left arm in several places. But the inhuman hunger of Petrachenko gives him freakish strength, and Pizza falls to Petrachenko's incredibly violent assault. He says nothing. He hums nothing. The only thing you hear, besides the sound of the footfalls and the snow, is chewing. A few hours later, the last sighting of Petrachenko comes from a vehicle-mounted camera outside of Kharkiv, not far from where Hillbilly and Pizza fell. There's 40 Ukrainian soldiers and foreign volunteers. Alongside them, 12 Russian POWs. The camera captures Petrachenko stumbling out of the trench. One of the prisoners sees him and screams in Russian, "It's him! It's him! Kill him! Kill him before he kills us all!" The Ukrainians tell him to shut up until the headlights turn on. Petrachenko is drenched in blood. His left arm hangs uselessly, his cheek torn open, and in his right hand he clutches another severed human right hand. The Ukrainians shout commands: "Surrender! Get on the ground!" He keeps walking. 2 mounted machine guns open up. Dozens of rifles fire. Round after round tears into him. Over 132 rounds slam into Petrachenko. Finally, he collapses. Somehow, still alive. As one of the Ukrainians walks up, you can hear Petrachenko barely manage to choke out one simple phrase: "Hungry. Just so hungry." And that is the end of Ivan Petrochenko, a boy born into Moscow, a child who dreamed of becoming a soldier, who became a thief, who became a soldier, and finally something else entirely. In Algonquin folklore, the Wendigo is a monster cursed with endless hunger. Maybe it's only legend, or maybe in the trenches of Ukraine, the legend walked again. Because Ivan Petrochenko didn't just die in Kharkiv, he became a Wendigo. If you found this story chilling, like, comment, and subscribe, and join me next time as we dive into another case file from the Phenomenon Cases, Ukraine.